You want to just stand by a sec? We're going to kick off very shortly here. Very shortly. We're going to kick off the meeting. So thank you very much for attending.
You're not kidding. Yep.
Everyone wants, everybody would
Dave.
please place their, place your computer on mute, or I'll mute all of you myself. Be starting shortly, so stand by, please. See a lot of familiar names on there. Yep. Okay, we're almost ready to start here. Okay, very good. I would like everybody, there's still more people coming in. Okay.
Quite
60
sure.
people. Frank, it's 7 o'clock. So do you want to kick off the agenda so far?
Okay. We'll call the tonight's SWAB meeting to order. We'll stand for pledge allegiance in a moment of silence on this end. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence, please.
Oh, I hit this mic. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking time to participate in tonight's SWAB meeting. Special thanks to the members, previous members, executive board directors and board members. I see your name popping up tonight. You certainly earned your stripes over the years, and I appreciate you staying involved with the Our first speaker tonight had a little problems with his computer, so he called in by phone. So Waylon Fitcher, our investigator for labor and industry, is going to be on the phone with us tonight, and we'll turn the meeting over to Waylon now.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me, and thanks for this flashback to pre-COVID days before we had all of this Zoom meeting and Teams meeting where we could still see each other. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the junior firefighter program and how child labor law works with that. I usually have a presentation that I like to show whenever I do this, but due to my computer not wanting to cooperate tonight, we don't have a presentation. So this is going to be kind of a facilitated discussion, if you will. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask as we go through this. So I'm going to start off with kind of identifying what a minor is. And for our purposes, we've got two minors and subminors. Minors are basically anybody under the age of 18. And our subminor category are 15-year-old kids. So you'll hear me refer to 14 and 15-year-old kids as subminors, and then your 16, 17-year-old kids as minors. So all minors and subminors have to have permits, whether they're so when they're yes. They still have to have work permits, they still have to have parental permission slips, and they still have to have school letters going back to the schools. Now, the school letters, the reason that we have to send those school letters out is so that the schools know where the kids are working and volunteering. The schools have the ability to pull the minors and subminors work permits based on their work performance in school. So if they're skipping school, or they're acting up, or their grades aren't up to par, they can pull their work permits and not allow them to work. So in order to do that, they need to be able to let their employers know, hey, they can't go to work anymore. And that's why the school letters are important. Now, when they go to work or when they start volunteering, those letters have to go back to the school within 5 days. Same thing whenever they're terminated, they have to be back to the school within 5 days. So I would not, if I were the coordinator, I would not be giving those letters to the kids to take back to the school. I would email those to the school to make sure that the school has those. If you don't have a copy of those, that's going to be a violation. Same thing if you're missing parental slips for your subminors. If you don't have those in your files from the parents, and what these parental slips basically say is that the kids are going to be volunteering here. Here's what some of their duties are going to be, and here's basically what their hours are going to be. That lets the parents know when and where their kids are going to be and what they're going to be doing. And that's only for the subminors. Your regular minors don't have to have parental slips, but they do. All of the minors have to have the school letters, and of course, all of the minors have to have permissions or the work permits. Now, the work permits are the only things that are authorized for the kids to have. They cannot work on a work permit application. I see a lot of the junior firefighters will come in and they'll say, hey, I'm getting my work permit. Here's my application. Will you accept that? And that's okay. But when they show up for the first day of volunteering, they have to have that permit ready to go. So they can apply with the permit application, but they have to have the permit on their first day. If they don't, that's a violation. And just so that everybody is aware, violations for child labor law, each violation is worth up to $5,000. So if you have 10 violations, that can be $50,000. Now that can also go on a sliding scale, but that's the maximum. So it's $5,000 per violation.
Waylon, we got a question.
Okay, shoot.
We got a question from Jason that said, could you please explain what the school letter is?
Okay, the school letter is basically a letter going back to the school saying, hey, we have this junior starting with us. They started on this date. They have work permit number such and such, and they're going to be volunteering with us from such and such time to such and such time. It's a real basic outline of what they're going to do, but you're basically just telling the school that this person is going to be working with us.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
I will be monitoring
I'm on a
chat for
random
questions.
meeting right now. I was just saying, hey, Mia, no, you're fine.
Okay. So how do these minors get the permits? They have to go to the school in the district where they're going to school. So if they're going to a private school, or they're homeschooled, or they're going to an academy or something, they have to go to the district that they're in and get the permit. It may not necessarily be the school that they're in, but they have to go to the district office to get the permit. Almost all of the secretaries can do the permits, but one of the things that you have to make sure of whenever you get your juniors is their age. What I have seen out there is I've seen schools issue permits to underage kids. So you want to be careful that you're not getting a 13-year-old that has a work permit. They're not supposed to issue them, but they have done it before. And that will be a violation on you, even if the school issues the permit. So that's something that you're going to want to check. But even if they're homeschooled or they're in a private school or an academy, they go to the regular school district administration building to get the permit. They also have to follow all of the rules or the holidays and days off of that school district. So if they're homeschooled, they obviously don't have the same type of days off that, say, the regular high school would have. They can take off days, whatever their mom and dad says they can take off. But for hours, whenever we get to the hours, I'll explain more about the hours in a minute. But when we get to the days off, non-school days, we follow the holiday calendars of the high school or the district that they're in, not necessarily of the school that they're in, but of the district that they're in. Okay. One of the new things that has taken place, and I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon, but when COVID hit, they started allowing the kids to apply for their work permits and allowing them to do it through video. They haven't taken that away yet. I suspect that that's probably going to go away here in the future. I don't know when, but they used to have to show up in person to get their permits. But right now they can still do it via video and get their permit. The reason I think this is going to go away is because we've had a little bit of a problem with some kids using other kids' names and forging permits. I'm not sure how that works in real life, but through video, for some reason, that seems to be a problem. So the things that are going to be on their permits, that it's going to be their age, their sex, their date of birth, there should be their address, their hair color, their eye color, and their physical work restrictions. Now, you want to actually look at those because, again, some of the kids are phoning up some of these work permits. Why they would want to phone them, I don't know. But I actually had a case where one kid was using his sister's permit, and he certainly was not blonde hair and blue-eyed or female. So I don't know why, but it happens.
Luther, Wayne, I've got two other questions for you. So are you, do you want them now?
Go ahead.
So I've got a question or a statement from Lancaster County. We have many one-room Amish and Mennonite one-room schools who meet the maximum of an 8th grade education. We are told that if the school gives a letter stating they've met their maximum requirements, they are no longer meet the needs of junior firefighter requirements at the age of 17 or even younger. Is that true for people not going beyond the 8th or 9th grade in farm communities?
Okay, so the answer to that is yes and no. Yes, that's true in that they are considered graduated. And what that means is that they are no longer under the hourly restrictions. And we haven't gotten to the hour restrictions yet, but you'll know what I mean whenever we start talking about how many hours they can work per day and what time they get off and how long they can work, how many hours per week they can work. Those restrictions are no longer they no longer have to follow those restrictions. But they still have to follow all of the other child labor law restrictions that are in effect until they turn 18. So it's only the hourly work restrictions are the things that change.
Got it. I've got two more. I'll give you a pretty quick here, and then you can get back on track. If the school is observing a virtual remote day, can we employ those juniors if their work or their school work is done and we have a guardian's permission?
A virtual remote day. So that would still be a school day, correct?
Yes, that is what I believe. Yes, that's the question here.
Okay, so when we get to hours, again, we'll talk more about hours here in a few minutes, but we break them down into school days and non-school days, and remote school days are going to be considered school days.
Why don't you just continue with the presentation and I'll get the questions after that.
Okay, let's scoot up there to hours then. Let me find my hours. I'm using a different slideshow presentation because it's the only one I could find. So kids that are sub-minors, they can only work 3 hours a day on school days. School days are considered Monday through Friday, unless it's a holiday. Non-school days are holidays and weekends. Non-school days are also going to be like your summer vacation, spring vacation, Thanksgiving, Christmas vacation, things like that. Those are non-school days. Now, if you've got summer vacation, but a kid is going to summer school, those are considered school days for that kid. Okay. Your regular minors, your 16 and 17-year-olds, they can only work shoot, I don't have it on my cheat sheet here. Well, I'm trying to pull it off the top of my head right now. They on school days they can work up to 8 hours a day, and non-school days they can work 10 hours. And yeah, it's 8 hours a day and then 10 hours a day for non-school days. For the week, they can't go over 40-hour week. For the sub-minors, they can't do more than 18 hours in a week, but they can do 8 hours on the weekend. 8 hours each day. So it gets a little bit confusing whenever you start looking at the hours that a kid can work. You just have to be aware of whether it's a school day or a non-school day. It's easier to think about it that way. And you guys get a little bit more leeway because you're a volunteer organization and you're not an employer. So what I mean by that is that you guys have training and whatnot. So you're not really paying them. So they give you a little bit of leeway. So like your kids, your sub-minors have to be done by 7 o'clock on a school day. They have to sign out and go home. But if they're in training before 7 o'clock, they can stay until 10 o'clock that night. They can stay until training's done or 10 o'clock, whichever comes first. Your regular minors, they can stay until midnight. And then they have to sign out and go home. Any questions on that so far?
I don't see any there. I've got a couple other ones, but you could keep going.
Yes, Jerry, I have a question, Jerry.
Okay, somebody's got a question. Go ahead.
So you say for sub-minors, they're only allowed to work until 7 PM, but with emergency services, we get an exemption until 10 PM, correct?
If they're training.
If they're training,
So
okay.
that's where the catch is, and you have to read the law. If they're in training prior to 7 o'clock, they can continue on till 10. If they're not in training, if they're not involved at 7 o'clock, they're done. They have to go home for the day. So if you're going to have training, you need to start your training before 7 o'clock.
Got it.
The
Go
next,
ahead.
the next question is, you said that if they are in training, they can stay until the completion of the course or until 10 PM?
Right, whichever comes first.
Okay, so my question is, how do we send 14 and 15-year-olds to the county fire school when class is scheduled until 10:30?
Yeah, see, that's going to be something that they're going to have to look at and change.
So as from Department of Labor, you are telling me do not send the child because class is scheduled past the close of 10 PM.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now, are they having that on a weekday, a school day, or are they having that on the weekend?
Correct. The fire school is during the week. Some of them are 2 times during the week and some of them are one evening on a school night. And they are scheduled 6:30 until 10:30. So my other question that goes with the hours is I cannot employ them until 10:30 to attend training. But a sub minor who is allowed to attend these classes, registration opens at 14. They are only allowed to work 3 hours a week, but the class is scheduled for 4 hours.
It's 3 hours a day.
3 hours a day, yeah.
Right. So they go to school, they come home, they go to the fire school, which is scheduled from 6:30 until 10:30. So the county fire school says they are eligible to take the class, but Department of Labor tells me I cannot send them. So I don't know if I legally can send them to obtain their mods or if I have to make them wait until they are older, or now they can attend them during the summer when sub minors can work 8 hours a day.
See, I would think that the simple solution, of course, I don't know how your logistics and everything works, but the simple solution would be to have those on non-school days. That would give them the longer window, and a little bit later, in the evening, they could go till 10 o'clock. Or yeah, like you said, in the summertime, offer the modules in the summertime.
Waylon, this is Frank Sangari.
Yes, sir.
That's something that needs to be addressed ASAP, because I can tell you throughout Pennsylvania that is not practiced. It's not practiced, and I don't even see it being practiced because these kids get in essentials classes at 14 and 15 years old. They run 6 to 10. They may run 6:30 to 10:30. It's beyond the 3 hours. And there's so many different issues that between having enough instructors, having enough students for classes, that needs to be addressed from L&I's aspect. That's not realistic on today's volunteers. It just is not realistic.
Are these modules typically something that is just part of the junior firefighter program, or
No.
is this part of the school?
It's part of training. The modules are offered to all new firefighters, juniors, guys that are 40 years old. It's offered to everybody.
Okay.
And
Okay.
actually some fathers or mothers may be in these classes with their sons or daughters that are participating.
Okay,
I just don't want to see somebody violating, getting a $5,000 fine, because we're telling you straight up, that is not realistic in Pennsylvania, and that would diminish the volunteerism worse than what's happening today. We need to address that. That's a big issue. Everything you said tonight, that's probably the biggest issue standing right now. It's that 3 hours a day. And the students are in that class. Like I said, their parents are sitting in the class with them. So what do you tell the students? 10 o'clock, you need to go home. Or your 3 hours are up, you need to go home.
yeah, okay. I wrote that down in my,
And the regulations to have those training classes, just so you know, is the students must participate in so many hours to pass those modules, to pass those essential classes. So it's a must for them to attend the classes. Yeah, they may miss an hour or two, or they may even miss a complete class, but it's a must for them to get those hours in to pass the training.
okay.
I got some more questions here to read to you, so I'm gonna start down the list. Are you done? Are you good, Frank?
Yes.
Okay, the first one is, do you have to follow the school district schedule the fire department is in, or can the junior follow the school district calendar they are in? Does it matter?
So typically, whenever I do an investigation and I get my census of all of my junior firefighters, I look at each junior firefighter and what school they go to, and I pull up their individual calendar. So I go by the calendar for which school each one of the junior firefighters go to. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I will, you could loop back with me, Joe, if you have anything to add to that. So here's another statement. I'm going to keep going down through. A school district official explained that if a student turns 18 years of age while still enrolled in school, she is still
I wanted
considered.
to put in my left earbud so I
Under
could
the-
hear you if you talk to me,
Stand
but it
by,
wasn't working.
stand by. A school district official explained that if a student turns 18, if while still enrolled in school, she is still considered a minor. Is that true?
So they may be considered a minor in some things, but as far as we're concerned, once they have their 18th birthday, they are no longer a minor.
Okay. Here's the next one. Is hanging out at the volunteer firehouse counted toward the employment hours or just responding to calls / training count?
Okay, this is a great question. So let's say we've got a sub minor, a 14 or 15-year-old that has to be out of there by.
Stand by.
Well, we lost Wayland for a minute here on the phone. Jerry's trying to get him back, but I hope the chief officers that are on this call or presidents of fire companies are listening to this L&I presentation, because there's a lot of things in there that are controversy. There's a lot of things that are hurting our future of volunteers. I don't know, it's kind of scary what I'm hearing tonight. Especially $5,000 fines. I don't know of any fire company that's received them, but it's pretty scary.
Okay. Hold on one second here.
I know Commissioner Cook is going to follow up with labor on the hours, so So just so everybody knows, Commissioner Cook is already aware of that, and he will follow up on labor with that.
So,
Jerry, do you know is there an email list that we can all get on? So when issues are resolved, we can be notified?
Just
hello.
hang tight. We're trying to get Whalen back on.
Okay, stand by. Yeah, we got him back. Stand by. Go ahead, Waylon.
Sorry about that. So where was I?
You were talking about 18 years old or no longer a minor.
Yeah, so as long as once they've turned 18, as far as we're concerned, they're no longer a minor as far as the Child Labor Act goes. They no longer have to follow any of the restrictions. They're an adult.
So the other one that we had is, does hanging out at the firehouse, is that added up in the hours, or is it just going on calls or training?
Okay, yeah, that's so that one. If they're a junior firefighter and they are signed in, as long as they're signed in, that counts towards the hours. Okay. Once they sign out, so our junior fire miners, our sub miners, that's the ones I'm looking for. Our sub miners have to be out of there by 7 o'clock. So once they sign out, let's say they want to come back in and play in their Nintendo marathon or whatever's going on. They can do that, come back in and play in the Nintendo as general public. Okay. But if there's a call or there's any other training going on, they cannot participate after 7 o'clock. Okay. They can hang out, but they can't participate. And that won't count against them for that 3 hours, but they can't do anything.
Sounds good. Waylon, I have another one that somebody who had iPad and was raising their hand to speak, you could speak, but when you get a chance, could you let people know that there has been violations and fire companies have been fined? You don't have to get into details, but if you could give us some case studies, that would help.
Sure. Well, I've had several firehouses that I've done investigations on, and a lot of this stuff. The reason I've got answers to a lot of it is through these investigations. And the one that I just gave you about the kid hanging out past 7 o'clock, that was one of how we got to that. Was through an investigation, because they had their sub miners were hanging out, and they said, well, if we kick them out at 7 o'clock, they're just going to go hang out in the streets. So we'd rather them hang out here with us. And the solution was have them just sign out. That way it shows that they're not working anymore. They're not volunteering anymore. So there is kind of a reason behind the madness on stuff. I've had a couple of cases where I've had junior firefighters who have spent the night in firehouses, and that's a big no-no. Or they go on an overnight training and spend the night at a firehouse. I had a couple of those, and that's a big no-no, because again, you have to look at it. If you can look at it from the standpoint of insurance and say, okay, at what point is this person in general public, or are they still part of the fire company? And if they get hurt, are they going to go on workman's comp, or are they going to get general insurance? Is that going to take care of it? If workman's comp is going to get involved and they're a minor, then that workman's comp injury claim is going to come to me at Department of Labor, and an investigation is going to get started. And if an investigation gets started and I start looking at it, am I going to look at it and see that this kid is over hours? Are they in the Are they doing things that they're not supposed to be doing, like staying overnight at the fire station? You know, things like that. I've had investigations where we've had juniors out doing field fires, and they're not supposed to be doing any kind of firefighting. So that's kind of the stuff that I find whenever I go out and I start looking at these things. And you just find them by gosh and by golly.
Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask, either by chat or just go ahead and raise your hand or join in?
I see a Jerry.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Ben.
Go ahead again.
So is there any publication with these rules in it?
Yes. So we have revamped the junior firefighter manual. The last time it was updated was 2015, and we just got finished revamping it. It should be rolling out any time now, and by any time I mean like hopefully the end of the month.
So-
I just talked to Harvey up at the up in Lewistown, and he's hoping that we can roll something out here very, very shortly. And this will be the latest edition of the junior firefighter manual. I don't know what they're going to call it. They're calling it something else, but it's going to be the junior firefighter program, and it's going to be available not only in copy but online as well.
Yeah, all right. Will that be off the State Fire Commissioner's website then?
Yeah,
Yes.
Ben, we'll find out because the commissioner and Harvey are on the call and we'll talk to them in a little
Oh,
bit.
All right.
I got another one for you. Are 17-year-olds allowed to run chainsaws in training?
That is a huge no. Right now, let me qualify that no. That no is qualified basically on whether or not they are in a
State
school program.
School program.
Okay, right now, as far as I know, we don't have a program that is okayed for the firefighters yet, as far as I know. I know that they have programs through the schools for the kids to learn how to use power equipment and whatnot. They have certified instructors that show them how to do that. But as far as the fire companies, I'm not aware of anything.
So chainsaws cannot be used in the local fire companies under any training mechanism. It's only state certified classes, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's as far as I know. Yeah.
I got a couple more, so stand by. With written permission, with written parent permission, can a 14, 15-year-old be at training or fire calls till 10 p.m.?
Yeah, until 10 p.m. And then they've got to be out.
Got it. Here comes another one. 16 years.
Hold on.
All right.
Let me back up there. Did you say fire calls?
Yes, it says with written permission. Okay, I'm assuming here, and this is from Glenn. If he wants to jump on and clarify that, that's okay. With written parent permission, can the 14, 15-year-olds be at training or fire calls till 10 p.m.?
So again, I'm gonna have to qualify the fire calls. It depends on what they're doing at the fire calls. I mean, they are very, 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 very limited in what they can do at a fire call, which is basically hand out sandwiches and sweep the road, right? That's about it. Training, yes. I'm going to say yes on the training. As far as fire calls, if they're standing by, observing, or they're participating in a function that they're supposed to participate in, then yes. But if they're participating in any other type of function that they shouldn't be participating in, they shouldn't probably be there.
Okay, Wayland, for justification purposes, they're wrapping hose or rolling hose, the fire's out, they're not involved in firefighting. They're wrapping stuff up to put it back on the apparatus. Is that justified?
If that's a function that they can do as a 14 and 15-year-old, then yeah, I would say yes.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest with you, I don't know all of the functions that these kids can and can't do. When I do an investigation, I will look at each one of the activities that they do and kind of weigh that in my prohibited activities lists and say, does that fit or does it not fit? But as far as saying that A, B, and C, they can do that or they can't do that, I really don't know until I look at the totality of the circumstance.
Well, Wayland, I believe if you reach out to Harvey and Commissioner Cook, and they share with you what they're learning in these essential programs, 1, 2, and 3 for sure, that would help you and assist you in what they may be doing after a fire, or certainly, back at the fire station after a fire.
Yeah, I've got a very limited list of things that they can and can't do, and it's like they can't operate a high pressure hose,
Yeah.
and that's pretty general.
Okay, so Mark, you want to go ahead and talk? Mark Jackson?
All right, so I apologize, but I got distracted for a second when you were saying about the chainsaw, so I want clarification, please. You said that they can operate a chainsaw if they're in the VOTEC program, but if it's a regular program, they can't operate a chainsaw?
If it's a regular fire company program, they cannot. No.
So including a state fire academy program?
Right now, no.
Okay, then I go to the next question is then to Commissioner Tom Cook and Administrator Harvey Boyer. How are we allowing them to take Mod 4 and taking the Firefighter 1 certification?
We'll just stand by because Commissioner Cook will be coming up right after we're finished here with L and I. So just stand by with that question, okay?
Okay.
I do believe this was a question that we have been tossing around in our group, and I'm not sure that we came up with a final answer on that yet.
We're going to, Wayland, you have had fire companies fined in Pennsylvania, correct? And
Yes.
And what is the most common issue? Was it non-compliance with hours, or an injury, or doing something that they were not permitted to do?
Usually the biggest non-compliance issue is going to be paperwork, their documentation, meaning they're having their school letters, their work permits, those kind of things. The next one is going to be hours. Typically, the thing that I see is, and it's mostly going to be the 16 and 17-year-olds staying late for a call. What they'll do is they'll stay until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to see if they can catch a late call. And then they'll go out on a 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning call where they shouldn't have.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is when you get involved, if I heard you correctly, it's after an injury has occurred and the workers' compensation system contacts you?
That's about 80% of my calls, yeah. Yeah,
And-
the other 20% are going to be complaints from either another firefighter or another fire company about, kids acting up at somebody else's firehouse or
Well,
at a scene.
I think that's some very good information that should be shared to the 80+ people on this call also is, looking back at my risk management days and things like that, where do those, again, an injury has occurred, and I'm kind of familiar with some of the things that have happened in the Harrisburg area in regards to juniors. But so it's other fire departments reporting other fire departments, and somebody gets injured and they turn it into the state workers' compensation fund. So
Yeah, yeah. And I would say probably your top workers' comp injury is going to be overheating. The kids get hot and they pass out. That's probably been my number one complaint.
got it. Now I see there's a mishmattering of other questions that come in. I think we're going to try to deconflict the chainsaw and the firefighter one a little bit later in the presentation. So we'll do some deconfliction on that. Anybody else have any specific questions? There was a question about giving your presentation out, and we'll work with you in regards to that also.
Just so everybody knows, for the lack of time here, this is being recorded, and we will still share your questions with LNI and ask Waylon to give us answers and try and include those in the minutes that go out from this meeting. So nobody's going to go unanswered here. We will still try and consolidate all your questions and get those answers and get that out as a follow-up from our meeting.
Jerry,
Yes.
Herbie Kerber, Delaware County Emergency Services Training Center. I missed part of the part in the beginning about the letters and the permits. Is that something that the ETAs are responsible for checking also, or does that just fall on the fire chief before he sends them to us?
The fire chief.
Waylon, that the guy that's talking runs a training center. Is the paperwork responsible of the training center or the fire chief in the fire department?
And it's the fire chief. That's not another thing the instructor has to find out. That should be done by the fire chief. They're the person responsible to okay them to put them into class. So the ultimate responsibility is the fire chiefs or designee, training officer, whoever they have designated. They're supposed to be supervised by the fire chief.
Okay. We're gonna move on to Commissioner Cook. And I'd like to thank our speaker here. We apologize for the crash of the computer, and so we're going to move on to Commissioner Cook and his staff, and we'd like to thank Waylon for attending. So,
Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry about the presentation, but I appreciate the discussion.
Waylon, this is Frank. We're going to forward the rest of the comments to you by email, and if you could give us those the questions, and if you could give us the answers, we'll include them in our meetings, our agenda here.
I certainly will, and I'll get you the presentation to hand out.
All right, thank you very much.
all right, guys. So I see,
Thank you.
I see, very good. I see Commissioner Cook is queued up, ready to go. So, Commissioner, it's all yours.
So first, a real quick comment on the chainsaw issue. The legal opinion that we got when Act 155 was passed was that the state fire training system has the same exemption to the child labor laws that a CTC program has. So now hearing Waylon's presentation tonight, I'll circle back around with LNI and find out where the disconnect is. All right. So we don't need to talk about chainsaws anymore tonight.
Okay.
All right. As far as the fire commission goes, we're still working on finishing up our objectives on our first ever strategic plan. And as part of that, we've distilled the strategic goals down into kind of 3 value statements, which are communication, collaboration, and access. And based on that, we've been operating for the last year. With the communication piece, we've managed to visit each of the regions in the Fire Advisory Board at least once, if not more than once, to unveil our strategy, the key initiatives, and then do some Q&A. We've hired a communications director, Andy DeBruner. I believe he's listening in tonight. So he will be handling all requests for speaking appearances, and we're working on putting together a formal communications plan. Those of you may have noticed, I have been out at the direction of the governor's office discussing the $30 million additional increase in the grant program budget. And we've been trying to, push very hard for that, because that $30 million is extremely important to us. We are starting a monthly column in the PA Fireman. The upcoming issue will have a piece, an op-ed piece from the fire commissioner, me, on training standards to start that discussion. We're working on webinars. Our goal is to eventually be doing webinars on hot topics. The first one will be 9 o'clock Wednesday morning to go over the notice of funding opportunity for the Municipal Fire Department Capital Grant Program, followed up by 11 o'clock Wednesday morning to go over the NOFO on the Training Center Capital Grant. And then shortly after that, we're going to do an evening webinar to review how the annual grant formula works, since there's a lot of confusion about what goes on with that. Under the collaboration label, we're working very closely with our fire advisory board. Got really good input from them on a number of issues. We're trying to dot the i's and cross the t's on a couple things. Hopefully we'll have some initiatives at the next SWAB that we can bring forth. As far as collaborating with state agencies, you heard Waylon mention we've been working on a revision to the Junior Firefighter Compliance Manual with L&I. We've been having ongoing discussions where we find conflicts between our interpretation and their interpretation. We're working very closely with the Auditor General to try and clean up the Relief Association stuff. That's going well in most cases. Working with DCED, we're going to be publishing this summer a guide to regionalization of fire services, which discusses the options there. And then we're continuing our relationship with the Bureau of EMS, trying to keep the Joint Rescue Program moving, reboot the VRSR program, and take some of the pressure off of the compliance issues with fire departments where possible for QRS. As far as external groups, we've been busy with the IAFF, the IAFC, NVFC, all the alphabet soup, PSTATS, PML, CCAP, the Association of Boroughs, Township Managers Association. We've been engaging in conversations with them and sharing of ideas on how to improve the delivery of fire protection in the Commonwealth. As far as access goes, we've added a certification test site in Erie at Perry Highway Hose Company. We've added the Northern PA Regional College as an educational training agency, and we're in negotiations with several others to continue to build out our training system statewide. The mobile live fire training trailer you've heard me talking about has been delivered. We've been through our dealer training, policy and procedures in final state, and as soon as we get a license plate out of DGS and the Department of Transportation, it'll be on the road. As far as the loan program, this Thursday at the Application Review Committee, we're taking 18 applications to the ARC, which total close to, I think, $3 million. The backlog of loan applications is down from over 110 to 68 as of this week. As far as the annual grant program goes, we've had 2,454 applications. There are 853 still outstanding where the departments have not signed and returned their grant agreements. Total amount awarded for fire was $30,143,065.46. The total awarded on the EMS side was $7,374,848. Mentioned the formula webinar. The municipal fire department capital grant and the training center capital grants, April 1st will be the application opening. And we're moving to a 45-day application window instead of 30 like we had last year. So giving everybody more time to get their applications in. Jerry, I'm going to assume you want to talk about grant reauthorization under legislation.
Yep, we'll review that very briefly.
Okay. And then as far as PFESI, we're getting a lot of questions on PFESI. We're still in the process of going through the bid process, trying to identify a vendor, and we will keep everybody updated as the process goes. The only comment I will have is do not let any specific vendor railroad you into buying something unless you really want to spend your money, because emergency reporting is not going anywhere until MERS rolls out in 2025. That's it for my report there, Jerry.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
And again, there was some stuff, guys, that last bullet point that the commissioner said, there's things floating around the internet in Pennsylvania that may not exactly be true. And I just wanted to just make you aware of that in regards to a reporting system. And if you have any questions, you just need to ask that question and stuff like that. Anything that the commissioner has on his report, you guys could open up your mic and ask him.
I have a question for the commissioner. It's Bill Moyer from Montgomery County.
Hey, Bill.
On the state grant for this year, I don't know if it was done through just interpretations on guidelines, but it appears that the 20 maximum of Fire One certification was put across the board, whether it was for one department, two departments in emerge, or three departments, or four departments. How did that come about with the changing from the previous guidelines that a 10 was the maximum per department? And if you merged and had two companies, then you could do 20. And if you had three companies, you could do 30.
So as part of with the new legislation that got the cap increased, Bill, we reviewed the language, and the language in the law is it's as far as I understand it, is very specific. We can only do a maximum per grant application. So it was being done wrong in the past based on that interpretation.
Okay. And then again, in reading the guidelines, which I try to stay on top of them, and many companies aren't aware of it, but I found on page 5 of the guidelines that a completed grant application has to be forwarded to your local municipality. And I'm assuming that that would be provided in the event that they would get some kind of an audit through the state with their liquid fuel tax and so forth. I don't know if it'll get to that level or not, but again, that was a change from the previous year that I sent to our township manager and chairman of the board, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I gave them a copy of that page 5, and they're like, "Oh." So again, I think from a communication standpoint for anybody that does the grant, they may want to make sure they read those guidelines every year. And lastly, underneath the definition, it just says a member for an organization. I hope that sometime in the very near future that is somehow readdressed, that it's not just somebody who's a card carrying member. Because I was looking over fundings in the area here, and I was quite disturbed when I started to do some right to know requests and see who organizations were listening for members, and find members that haven't been involved in them companies for 8, 10, 12 years, or even moved out of the state, but they're being given the credit. And like I say, I just hope that something is definitely changed. I know there's a lot of companies out there that are being honest. I think that the companies that did this really stretched their interpretation. But it's concerning. only because in our county, in Montgomery County, our commissioners have passed an ordinance that's going to give a real estate rebate next year to firefighters. And my concern is that if that deceitfulness is occurring on a state grant level, will that blend over into the county level and tarnish what some chiefs have done that is really good for the volunteer fire service in Montgomery County here. So I just hope that when the opportunity comes for taking a look at this reauthorization of this grant, that a true active member is who has to be on that Fire One certification listing, not just somebody that has retired and moved on and is not even involved in the fire service anymore is being listed. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Bill. And, for everybody on the call, look, I know there's organizations that are stretching, we only have a limited data set to determine eligibility based on the law, right? So if you guys know of somebody that is not complying with the eligibility requirements in particular, please tell us, because what we do is we look at PenFirst. If there's the appropriate number of calls listed in PenFirst, they're eligible, right? So if you guys know of people that are lying on PenFirst, you need to tell us, because we have no other way of knowing.
Yeah. I'm not talking about
Well,
meeting the requirements of
same thing with
15 calls, but it's about the definition of just a member.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fire companies that have social clubs that the person's no longer a true responding firefighter, but somewhere along the line, and those are just things that I just want to make certain that across the board that we're not tarnishing what this organization is trying to do here, along with the grant reorganization of the funding and so forth, that we don't have this game of deceitfulness, because that's the way I put it at. So thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Bill.
All righty, we're going to continue on. You got some comments here that you're doing a great job, Commissioner. So thank you very much there.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, here is legislative update for everybody. And what we'd like to talk about, obviously most of you are getting our emails that we go out with our SWAB emails. These are the things that have recent movement. There is a lot of bills that have been introduced, but with the Firefighters Association of the state of Pennsylvania, they have a gentleman by the name of Tom Santana who does a lot of good research and partners with PFESI, and we send out that monthly report. And when the House and Senate, the committees vote something out of the committees, we track that, we monitor that. And I just wanted to list a couple things here that we are tracking and monitoring. Senate Bill 1099 starts the grant reauthorization process on the Senate side. And that is out there if you wanted to search that and take a look at that. It's not a done deal yet, because the House has to put their version in, and before the budget's done in June, there's probably going to be some opportunities for some amendments, and Wes from the State Fire Commissioner's Office have had a lot of input into it also. So there's kind of a lot of different people put input into the grant reauthorization. And that's the most important thing, to get it reauthorized. There will be some tweaks. We're talking about it, and we're glad to hear some of the feedback that we've heard. Senate Bill 1101 is a Firefighter One testing bill that would allow some flexibility in the testing of firefighters, Firefighter One candidates. Senate Bill 365 is including post-traumatic stress injury in the workers' compensation benefits. Now, that is currently in the Senate. There's a House version of it, and there's a lot of people involved in that. There's a lot of career and volunteer firefighters would be eligible, police officers, state troopers. They're attempting to put amendments in to have corrections officers part of that. So there's still a lot of moving parts in that. So that bill, Senate Bill 365, it has been supported by all four major fire service organizations in Pennsylvania. Same thing with the two previous that I mentioned. So we're going to continue to monitor that. The other one is Senate Bill 158 was voted out of the Finance Committee to give a volunteer state tax credit. And I think that's going to be going to the Appropriations Committee next. And they have to kind of figure out, you know, how much money the state would give up to give a volunteer fire tax credit. And House Bill 2084 moved out of committee to exclude income received from LoSAP from the state tax. And that moved out of committee last week. There's a couple other projects that we're working on. There was a Senate Bill 719 that would permit volunteer fire companies to do online raffles. There is interest in that. I've talked to a couple of people about that, but there's been no movements. And there's some work on the hazmat team side, the volunteer hazmat teams, and including them in the tax credits at the municipal, school district, and county level. And there's some discussions about Act 13 and Act 165 revisions. So that's the current legislative moves. PFESI update. Obviously, we'd like to thank you guys for your interest in PFESI. We do have our seminars that are available. We have a bunch of different seminars that will be scheduled. Those are the three main seminars that we've run. We do also attend a bunch of different events. We'll be at the Township Supervisor Conference, CFSI, the PA Fire Expo. So if you guys are at the expo, please stop by and see me. Just to say hi and talk a little bit in the PA Boroughs Association. We've had a little reorganization at PFESI. We have a new board president, Chief Bill Rigby from Middletown Township, Delaware County. And there's the lineup. And we also have a new board member, Chief Mike McLaughlin from Peters Township. He's a new board member. We thank our past board members that are on this call, and the board members that you see provide a lot of good feedback for PFESI and help us out. So I know you guys got some more questions and stuff like that, and I'm gonna go to the questions. But as you kind of look at that, I do want to throw up here an opportunity for you to donate to PFESI. We've had the fraternity program for many years. Kind of consider one of these. If you'd scan that code, you could donate to PFESI. Our budget's about $125,000 a year, and we get funding from corporate sponsors, EMS and fire company donations, our SWAB assessment, our fraternity program, and then our educational and consulting program. So with that, let me take a look at some of the questions that you have here. Okay. Will there be night meetings for those meetings? Let's see here, for people that can't attend. As Commissioner talked about 9 a.m. webinars, municipal grant. Tom or Andy, you want to kind of clarify that a little bit about the grants you guys are, the grant NIPFOs you're going to do?
Yeah, the two NOFO meetings for the municipal fire department capital grant, since that pretty much applies just to the career fire departments. That one is at 9 o'clock Wednesday morning. That is going to be the only offering of that one right now. 11 o'clock on Wednesday is the Emergency Services Training Center grant NOFO meeting. It doesn't mean, if you don't attend the NOFO meeting, it doesn't mean you're ineligible. It just, we're trying to get some information out ahead of the application period. The annual grant formula webinar will be an evening webinar.
Thank you, Tom. And we do have a question also that says, who is against Senate Bill 365? And if you guys remember, Senate Bill 365 is the PTSI, and there are people that are definitely against that. There's two things that are required to fund when you talk about municipalities and fire departments in Pennsylvania. They're required to do two things. Okay, they're required to pay your workers' compensation insurance, and they're required to pass on the Relief Association money to you. Those are the only mandates that they have. So I've heard the PA Chamber has a concern, which is the PA Chamber of Business and Industry that's concerned. I've heard of a few municipal government associations that are concerned. And again, people are not against helping firefighters and EMTs that may have a post-traumatic stress injury. It always resolves around the costs, and there are people that are afraid which what will happen is that similar things happened when cancer became part of the workers' compensation system. So a lot of moving parts going on here. So it says, what seems to be the holdup allowing online raffles for volunteer fire companies to raise funds for themselves? And I'll be very honest with you, Zach, thank you for asking that. And that is the gaming industry. The gaming industry in Pennsylvania and the gaming lobby in Pennsylvania is extremely powerful. And there was an attempt by one of our senators and one of our state reps to permit some online raffles and do those things and make them official. But what I was advised by a staffer who works for one of the committees, was that the casino industry pays millions of dollars in licensing fees every year to be able to do that. And even though I've talked to many members of the House and Senate that empathize and with the situation facing volunteer fire companies and other nonprofits, that's what's holding it up is that industry. So I'll be brutally honest with you. That's how we, and we have, again, what we do is we advocate for you and we tell that story, but sometimes those larger industries are very powerful. So I will be able to, I am recording this and I will be posting this to my YouTube page and I will be sending this stuff out to you guys. So other questions that anybody else may have that you did not type in? Okay, going once, going twice. We're going to turn it back over to our statewide advisory. Well, hold on, one more question here. Hold on. It says, can the commissioner talk about the new law allowing 17-year-olds to attend county training?
Jerry, it's Steve. I'm sorry. The thing went before I could finish the sentence. Yeah, I wanted to ask Tom, as a state and a local level instructor, does the state have any numbers yet on completion rates for these people that are coming in? Because to be honest with you, what we've seen at Montgomery County is not the best and brightest for the future. We have had problems with maturity levels, phones, and the general attitude of some of these kids when they come in. So I'm just wondering whether you have any numbers yet. I know it's still early in the program, but just wondering whether you have any numbers yet on how many of these people are actually completing all 4 mods and getting their Fire One certificate.
Not yet, Steve. Like you said, it's still a little early. We're collecting data from the ETAs and the test sites, and we'll have I'll make sure for the next SWAB meeting we have an update on the numbers for everybody.
That's great, Tom. And I think maybe doing a generational presentation. I know somebody that could do that too is pretty good. I got another great question that came in. We were ready to slam the door shut on this meeting, but it came in. Thank you, Bob. Are people aware of the OSHA standard review? Okay. So NVFC, National Volunteer Fire Council, if you guys go to their website or if you're on one of my emailing lists, I did send that out. Does anybody have any awareness on the OSHA standard, the updated fire brigade standard they'd like to maybe give their opinion on? Who is willing to talk about that?
Jerry,
Yes.
Tom Savage, at that presentation at Cumberland Valley recently, that's really complex. It looks like they want to take the NFPA standards and make them laws. And one of the examples was the 2 in, 2 out, and if you violate it, it could be a $5,000 per incident. I think the push is on to get them to extend the comment period, number one, and secondly, to request a public hearing so that this can be fully vetted here, because it's going to have a major impact on fire service and EMS. Thanks, Tom. I know New York State has been having some, New York State Firemen's Association and some others have been having some webinars from my previous connection with my previous employer. One of the guys I know did that, but it's pretty significant. If you guys would, if you have time to
Google the OSHA Fire Brigade standard changes or the National Volunteer Fire Council website. And, you know, it's a large document. It's got 600 pages to it, but it does, it is pretty significant. And, you know, even though, you know, it's one of those situations where we need to be aware of it. And definitely in a lot of times in the work I do in Harrisburg and some of the things that we talk about is that constant unfunded mandates and people concerned about unfunded mandates. So another one here. Okay.
Gary, this is Timko. And for people who see me, I'm in Hawaii right now enjoying the nice weather. So thank you for saying the NVFC. We are working on some information that will be probably going out at the beginning of April to help people along what they can do. And some of the comments we're getting from our own directors. But have somebody look at it, the highlights, and any letter that can help us get the extension would be great. And also the hearing. The more they hear from us at OSHA, to give us some time to digest this and how it affects all of us.
Jerry.
It's definitely, and Ray and Tom were there. For you guys, I do apologize. I got a little emotional about it. But I was told from somebody from Wisconsin this past weekend that they had this plan about 10 years ago. They were actually looking at doing it, and somehow now the dust came off the standard. So it's just something to read, get highlights on, and look at your own department or your county association, how you can help us. We just want an extension and then the hearing. That's the goal from the NVFC. So thanks for getting that out too, Jerry. I appreciate it.
All right.
Jerry Relanaba. Can you hear me? We basically, I came out of industry, and basically this was the old standard that came out in 1979 when Tom Seymour wrote it when he does subpart L. And this was for industrial fire brigades originally. Now they want to change the name to emergency responders. Now, what that means is that it no longer just applies to industry or states or OSHA states. Now it applies to everybody. So where you're trying to, now we have OSHA, everybody tries to meet 1500, NFPA 1500, which basically was the fire services OSHA standard. And again, it was pretty much voluntary. You know, you did what you can with volunteer department. Now what you're doing is you've got a gun to your head. And I raised a lawyer, so I know how they work, but this basically can lead into a legal nightmare if something happens and OSHA comes in and NIOSH does an investigation on you and then finds out, well, you weren't following all these standards. And basically, like you said, it's another unfunded mandate. And it's another thing of pushing the volunteers out the door. And if you think I'm kidding, read it.
Okay, I got two more.
Thank you, Ray.
Two more, and we'll be moving on here soon. Lancaster County Training Center continues to state that there are not enough instructors. Is that a statewide issue, and what is being done? And the other one I'll throw out, and it says, will the state start providing pertinent grant turn down feedback? And I don't know, I'm not sure exactly what that is because I thought everybody kind of gets a grant, but I'll wait. Tom, you want to try any of those?
So the number of instructor issues, yes, it is a statewide thing. There are pockets where we're struggling to get enough instructors for a lot of different reasons. And we're working through those issues with the ETAs, trying to get a better feel for what's actually going on. Some of it is there's a dearth of instructors in regions, and some of it is employment practices by the ETA that hinder their ability to hire. So it's just like recruiting volunteers. We've lessened the requirements to become a state instructor, and we're still struggling to get people to apply because people don't want to do it. So that's that one. And Harvey, what do you mean by pertinent grant turn down feedback? What are you looking for?
That's more along the lines of the Act 13 stuff. You know, you get a note that says you've been turned down, and you
And we
and I've
don't
had
give you
this
a reason?
discussion, right? We've had this discussion. I've been told that the lawyers said you can only say so much. And my concern is a lot of this stuff is governed by acquisition regulations, whether they're state or federal, which means, we're applying for basically something you put out, a NOFO. And when you're turned down, you're obligated to tell people why they were turned down. So that was my thing. And it's only to make us better at applying for the grants and everything. I had the unique opportunity last week, Thursday, I met with Senator Stefano's and Senator Mastriano's staff at the Capitol. We did a first responder trip from Westmoreland County, some of my old buddies, and it was very informative. And that was why my comment, I said, you're doing an awesome job. I know there was a lot of people that don't have a good feeling for the State Fire Commission's office from previous years. And hearing the feedback from the senators, our local reps, and a lot of the other organizations, I think we're moving in the right direction.
No, thanks, Harvey. And I'll look into what you're asking for and find out. I'm sure the attorneys are trying to limit what feedback we give out, but let me see if I can find out whether we can do something a little more descriptive. All right.
Yeah. And it's the same thing. Like if you fail firefighter 1, the written exam, you failed. I can understand. You don't say you failed question number so and so and so forth, but we should at least give people the opportunity to say, okay, this is the area you need to go and study in, right? This section of the training and all that. So, it's going to make us better if people know why they're failing, or, we need to adjust our training, appropriately to if there's several people or multiple people fail a particular section, maybe we need to focus on that more.
Yep, I agree.
All right. All right, guys, I think we're going to be wrapping it up. Great meeting.
We want to thank everybody for attending tonight, and certainly have a blessed Easter season with your families. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
You look good, Frank.
Thanks, Tom.
Happy Easter.
Same to you, guy.
Good to see you.
I'm still live here. Hold on, Frank. I'm gonna.